Earlier this year, I started an experiment. I was going to try out the 12-week year, but instead of hustling and grinding, I was going to take a bit more of a gentle approach. The 12-week year is officially over, and in this video, I'm going to be reflecting on the process, the experiment, and answer 4 main questions. Number 1, can you put a gentle framework on the 12-week year and still experience success? Number 2, what kind of goals are best suited for this approach? Like, could you kind of just do anything? Number 3, do I recommend it? And number 4, am I going to continue it in the future? So let's get started. So number 1, can you put this gentle framework on, or this gentle approach on the 12-week year? And kind of like, what do I think about that conceptually now that I've lived it out? Yes, I think that you can do it, because ultimately what you need for the 12-week year, or what you need most, is the 12-week container. I do, however, think that it is best suited for some goals more than others. I don't think that just any goal would be successful. I think that some goals would fall off because of the gentleness, and I will talk all about that and what that means when we get to question 2. I think that there's ultimately 3 kind of main things that you would need in order to have success in this project, or things I would recommend. Number 1, to frame things as projects instead of goals. Number 2, to be open to changing goals and benchmarks as you move, through the project. Number 3, to set up goals in chunks or smaller projects. So things you could do in small increments in time. One of the things I've noticed in watching other people's videos on the 12-week year is that they'll be working towards a goal, and when it's not really working or jiving, they see it as a problem in themselves and not something that they should tweak or change, as in there's a problem with the goal. Sometimes we are too ambitious, and I just think personally it's more detrimental to be oh, I'm failing, I'm not living up to my expectation or my goals, and therefore I need to work harder. And then number 2, I also think that some goals, just as we're working through, we don't feel as aligned or attached to them as we did at the beginning. And so if you have a mindset of I'm willing and open to kind of change and pivot as needed, I think that you are more open to success ultimately. And then number 2, I think that's a gentler approach mentally, because even let's say hypothetically you went with a true goal. You want to earn, let's say you want to earn $1,000 in this quarter. Let's say that you weren't actually working hard enough. Hustling harder, grinding harder is not going to be sustainable to achieve that goal. And unless you are truly putting in 2 hours a week when you have 40 hours a week that you should be putting in, barring that, saying that it's a problem with you is more of a negative mindset and can lead to that grinding and hustling and burnout. I also think that one of the reasons why you should break up your goals into manageable chunks is because if you're taking a gentler approach, it also most likely means that you probably aren't going to be having as much time towards these goals. You might only have a few hours a week to work on this thing. So if you break your larger goal up into either smaller projects or chunks, that means that you could spend 1 to 2 hours a week and then come back next week and then work on the next thing, instead of losing your place. I mean, what's actually the next step, or losing momentum. That was one of the reasons why I think I experienced a lot of success, was because my first goal was my work goal. It was really just a constellation of projects that I could do in one sitting that would move the needle. And you can always break up a larger goal this way. If your goal is to, let's say, launch a website, have each step or each strategy in your project be one sitting worthy, or you could do in one sitting. So I think you would consider what would one sitting on average look like to me? Do I have half an hour? Do I have 45 minutes? Do I have an hour? Is that what a sitting would be, and then you can construct your steps accordingly. And then following with that, if perhaps like you don't finish, leaving notes to yourself about like where you are in the process and what you want next steps to be would be like incredibly helpful. I also felt like 3 projects was way too much for me. I just see so like every person I've ever seen do this video has like done 3 goals. And I'm pretty sure the creators of this talk about having like at least 1 goal and 1 personal goal, but they do say you could have like 1 goal, I think like up to 3 or 4. And I chose 3 goals because like that's kind of what everybody else was doing. And this is just kind of unnecessary. One thing always became the priority, and then the other things just like didn't get the same kind of time and attention. And so it felt like at one point, like I was doing these other things because I had to, because they were a goal, even though I didn't care about them in the same way. That's the entire reason why I like changed out 2 of my 3 goals. I made my second goal something that was more like wellness related and something that could be done like in 20-minute chunks every morning. And like that was the only thing I was going to commit to. And then I dropped my 3rd goal. It was a creativity goal. I talked about this in a previous video that I didn't really want to be rigid about my creativity. So if there ever is a going forward, I would focus on 1 project at a time. The biggest question mark in terms of like, should you do it and like, could you or will you experience success is your ability to kind of finesse the boundary between, specific and gentle. I think I need to like talk a little bit more about what that means. Most goal setting frameworks talk about being like specific and measurable. Even like just like the most common, most popular SMART goal setting, the first two of the SMART are specific and measurable. And there's a real benefit to that, because if it's measurable, then you can like actively measure your progress. You see where you are in your goal. And if it's specific, that also usually includes like a time sensitivity to it. By virtue of being in this project, you have 12 weeks. Unless you want to like break your goals up into like smaller chunks, as in like you're going to do 1 goal each month, therefore being, 4 weeks kind of maximum for each goal. So I think considering what is gentle to your approach or how you like your approach to be gentle is most important. And the assumptions that I made at the top of the project weren't actually And with that, I think it can also be important to think about, are you willing to sacrifice measurability and specificity? If so, like to what extent? I feel like it's important to think about that, because the recommendation for goal setting is always specific and measurable, and being gentle can be somewhat counterintuitive to that. Like you're not goal setting in the most optimal way or in like the recommended way. And I feel like if you're taking a gentle or slow productivity approach, you are kind of bucking the guidelines a little bit. So I just think that conversation is one that you should have with yourself or journal about. So question 2, what kind of goals does this framework best support? We've already kind of started talking about that, but I have more to say, and I feel like some insights to give. The reason why I was suggesting project-oriented goals is for a few reasons. The first is that if you reframe your idea of a goal to a project, I think that's also a gentler way to think about your goals and goal setting. It's like a gentler mind shift. What I think is most important to the kinds of goals you select is something that you can work towards. This is like the whole thing that I realized. Like I was getting caught up in this idea of measurability and specificity. They're important to think about, but ultimately, if you have something to work towards, that is motivation, and that does provide you with momentum. And if you also reframe things as a project, you can work towards project completion, where the project completion is the lag goal. So ultimately, have you completed this project? yes, then you've completed the goal, and then you also don't complete the project until the very end, making it a light goal. And so for you reframe things as projects, then you can like create steps to completing your project. And by using the project framework as well, you can kind of remove some of the associations with milestones and metrics. One of the best goal projects, I think, are launch goals. So like setting up a new website or launching a YouTube channel. Launch goals are, I think, a really, really fabulous way to use the 12-week year. With projects and this kind of discussion of projects, you also get to frame what success means to you. And that's why the project/launch perspective, I think, is really helpful, because it frames success as like doing the thing, as launching the thing, as putting yourself or your work out there. Did you grow your YouTube channel last month? Yes, then like you've experienced success. The 12-week year recommends both lead and lag goals. And now, after experiencing kind of one iteration of the project, I very much understand why they talk about this combination. The lead goals are usually behavioral or like repetitive things, like go to work 2 times a week or read a book 2 times a week, as an example. They're things that you can check off, but they're often like behavioral or habit things. And you get to, check them off in the moment, which like can provide momentum. And then you have the lag goals that you work towards. If you're not careful with the setup of your project, you could have a predominantly or exclusively lead goal project. This happened to me. And after a while, this got really boring. In my opinion, a lot of the times lead goals are like maintenance goals when it comes to like our life and business. Even if you're trying to achieve something, like even if you're trying to grow your YouTube channel, your lead goals would be filming videos, publishing videos, maybe brainstorming videos. They're just like really maintenance kind of everyday behaviors. And those aren't things that you can really, you're not working towards anything. So mentally for me, it just becomes boring and it becomes repetitive, and it can feel like, what am I even doing this for? Like I'm doing the same thing week in and week out. Like what's the point? Even though there's a clear point and there's, you're trying to work towards something, the working towards something is lost when you have exclusively or primarily lead goals. That's why the 12-week year recommends having that lag goal of the subscriber growth that you want to experience. So you're always working towards that, and it provides like momentum and motivation and kind of like your why. So I think ultimately one of the best things you can ask yourself is, how can I turn my goal into a project? And if you have something like a YouTube channel, let's say you want to grow subscribers and you're like, you know what, Shauna, I don't want to put the number of subscribers. I don't want that to be the goal, but I also don't want to get stuck in this, monotony of publishing videos every week and that just kind of being how I frame my goal. You can brainstorm maybe new ways to gain subscribers. So maybe you could brainstorm, maybe I'll launch a new series in this program or in my 12-week year. Maybe one of the things I'll do is launch a new series, and that could be one of your tactics. And launching a new series can be a really fun thing to do. That's just an example. And I can really see people tapping out if they just feel like they're doing those maintenance type tasks or habits, and their whole process really lacks a why. Even if at the beginning, your goal at the beginning has a very clear why and a very clear intention, we can forget about that really easily. And those things might not resonate with us for 8 or 12 weeks later. And so having a mixture of lead and lag goals is a great thing. And you can create your own lag goals without having them be as specific as we talked about. I'm going to address the last 2 questions together. Do I recommend the 12-week year, and will I continue moving forward? The answer to number 3 is very straightforward. Yes, I do recommend the 12-week year if you have a clear project-oriented goal. We just talked about kind of why. Will I continue moving forward? When we last spoke about this project, I was saying that I was feeling a little bit indifferent about it, and I don't like some of the conceptual ways that the authors talk about this project. And if I have anything associated with the 12-week year, even if I take my gentle approach, I'm still associating with that concept, with those authors, with that premise. And I still don't love that. You can also, like, if you're uncomfortable with these men, and this kind of like super capitalistic hustling momentum, like, you don't have to buy the book. You can get it from your library, which is what I did. So you don't have to give them any money. And I was initially going to say no. I was initially like, you know what? I'm not really feeling it. At the end of August, beginning of September, I was feeling like I was tapering out, like my projects are coming to an end. And a couple of weeks ago, I feel like I just kind of hit the wall and I was just doing those maintenance tasks. Like all of my larger projects were overall done. And I was like, all right. And I was kind of getting a little bit bored. And that's just like not a great note to leave on. Like feeling bored, feeling like I didn't get that aha moment of like, yes, you know, I did it. I completed it. I didn't feel that way, even though I did complete it. Part of the why, my project goal of like laying the foundations for a new process, it's just like not like a sexy goal to achieve. You know, it's just like, it doesn't feel the same as like hitting a true milestone. Like rejigging a workflow or a process isn't really a milestone. And so it just like felt kind of meh. And so I'm like, I don't really feel married or connected to this project. Like it was fun. You know, I did what I wanted to do. I got back in the process of work. This project was great. Like I'm going to move on. And then a couple of weeks ago, I decided that I wanted to like launch some personal projects. And I got very excited about them. And I was like, yes. And I'm like, the momentum is there. And I'm kind of like in a moment right now where I'm like waking up a little bit earlier because I'm excited to like wake up and start my day and like do the things that I want to do. And like this morning, I woke up at 7:30. It's a Saturday. And I like went like straight to my computer to like write and do some things. And I was like living my best life. And I was just like typing away, like totally lost track of time because I was just having a great time. Next thing I know, it's like 10:30. I've been working for like 2.5 hours. And it, you know, that's the kind of morning. Those are the kinds of things that have been happening to me lately. How I felt at the end of round one isn't the 12-week year's fault. That's my own fault for the type of goals that I set and the kind of way that I framed it. However, if I look at my intentions, I achieved everything. And most important, I built up this momentum that I had lost since March. I have not been working towards like any goals, like almost at all, since March. It's October now, you know? And also one of the reasons I wanted to say no was because I already have this goal in mind that I'm already working towards. So it's like, I don't need this like container or this framework anymore. Like it did its thing. I'm working towards goals. Previously, when I wasn't posting videos, it was because there was like a lack of momentum and motivation. Now, if I'm not posting a video, there's a very specific reason. I'm working on another project. Like that's taking priority and precedence. So I was going to say no, but then I like stopped and I looked at the whole picture. I was like, wait a second. I built up the foundation that I wanted to build. I achieved goals. I have a goal right now that I'm very excited about. Why not put that in a container? Why not like continue the habits that I've already built? I don't have to stop what I'm doing if I already have a process that's working. And sometimes like when you have something that's like so basic, like you don't appreciate it because it's like it's doing its job. And I kind of felt like that was the moment that I was in. And when I also was having this moment, like I had this whole brainstorming writing session a little while ago. I'm at this moment very confident. I have not been this happy and this confident about like my work life in a very, very long time. And what I mean by confidence is I feel like I'm doing the right thing. I feel like I'm doing my due diligence, and I also feel very capable. In the past, one of the reasons why I haven't gone after goals is because I felt like I'm not capable, I can't do it, or like I'm not the right person for this thing. I don't feel any of that way. I feel like I'm the exact person to do the things I want to do, and I'm doing my due diligence. I feel so confident and capable. Like, why the heck not? Why not put this in a container? And what was kind of the last nail in the coffin is that one of the projects I'm working on now is one I've attempted 3 times in the past, but I've let it go each time because I was like obsessing over it and I wanted to be the most perfect version. And I just like wouldn't release it into the world. And if I put it in a project like this, that means that it's going to get released into the world. I'm going to put it out there. Even if it's not like the most perfect iteration, I'm just like not going to hold on to it for 3 years or 2 years or whatever. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to work on one project a month for the next 3 months. So October is one project, November is a different project, and then December is Vlogmas. I don't think I'm going to be making more videos in this series because the projects that I'm working on are like private. And like when I release them, I want to release them at specific points, not necessarily like prematurely. So it would be a little bit useless to show like a planning or me planning these things, because like, what am I going to show? I don't really want to talk about what it is generally. I want to, take my time with them. I think that this one project a month is actually a really great way for me personally to go about this, because as I said previously, 3 goals at once it was almost like padding the goals to make it look like I was doing more than I really was. And one project a month kind of gives me my focus and my attention. And lastly, I decided to make Vlogmas its own project because I want to be very cognizant of starting January not burnt out. One of the contributing factors to why I burnt out last March was because I got a job last December, and then I also was doing Vlogmas on top of that. Vlogmas is almost like a full-time job. So it was like I was doing 2 full-time jobs while also like trying to have a social life and like a love life and friend life and, go on vacation. It was just a lot. And then I just didn't stop in January. So I'm hoping for it to be a little bit gentler, and Vlogmas for me starts like mid-November. So the planning for it and like the filming and all of that is really coming in like 5 weeks. It feels right. So this is going to be my last video in the 12-week year series. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that you learned from it. If you're considering setting up a 12-week year, I'd love to hear your approach. And thanks for watching. Thanks for spending time with me today, and I hope to see you again around here soon.